Ronmor's ownership, as you mentioned, it's by two third-generation Alberta families. How does this long-term vision influence the company's strategy and culture?
I think the long-term vision is what sets us apart. I look at the pieces of land that my grandfather would have been a part of purchasing. He wasn't even alive to see developed. Not a lot of other companies have that ability. Some of the larger companies, they want to churn capital. They want to invest now, they'll pay market price. They'll do their development and they'll get out, and they make good returns for their investors. We were large enough that we could buy these and sit on them and be patient. So I think it's really shaped our long-term vision, and it's created a ton of opportunity for us.
What criteria does Ronmor use when evaluating new acquisitions or development opportunities?
Well, it's really nice to say that I'm bullish on Calgary. I love Calgary, everything about it. We've got amazing people here. It's an entrepreneurial city. We feel very good about the future of Alberta and specifically Calgary. In terms of criteria, it's different between all the projects. So obviously we want to generate a good return, but if we're keeping things long term, then location is really critical because it'll stand the test of time.
Welcome to the Mastering Property Management Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Sarbit. Join me as we delve into candid conversations with industry experts to uncover their strategies and insights for achieving success in property management. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, let's elevate your property management skills together.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jared Sarbit, and today I have the honor and privilege of having Harrison Zivot on, Vice President of Investment, Ronmor. Harrison, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Harrison, get right into it. Tell me a little bit about who Ronmor is.
So Ronmor dates back quite some time now. So it was really started by a group of families that come over from Eastern Europe. And I can specifically talk about my family. But my great-grandfather had sort of a fruit cart at City Hall in downtown Calgary. And he just saved his money and got into the cattle trading business, which is what he did back in Europe. He was a personable person is what I heard, very hardworking, and he just saved his money and then started kind of getting into the real estate game. So that's sort of how it started. And then my grandfather, who was actually his son-in-law, was one of the founders of Ronmor. So that's sort of where Ronmor began.
Very cool. Very cool. And then passed on to generations, and tell me a little bit about the next steps after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when my grandfather David was starting Ronmor, the families would sort of just buy industrial assets, build a few buildings here and there, some office assets, and then really the key component was buying large pieces of farmland that were outside the city. So the stories I've heard is he would go and knock on the farmers' doors and get to know them and say, do you want to sell your land? You could stay here and farm. And, he was able to buy some pieces of land, and our other partner, the Paperny family, they would do the same thing. And so we would pool our money together. We would buy these pieces of farmland. And, after many decades, this is sort of, what created a lot of what Ronmor has. And my grandfather passed away in 1998, and my father was a podiatrist, foot and ankle surgeon, and he was pretty much thrown into the fire. So he jumped into Ronmor really without having much business experience. And he just worked really hard. And, he's conservative in nature, which I think is a really good quality of his. And he and Lauren Paperny got our development arm going. And then that's when we started developing a lot of our retail grocery anchored shopping centers.
Gotcha. So that was in 98, you said, or something? Yeah. 98. Okay. Very good. Amazing. And where are you guys today?
So we've come a long way. We've developed a lot of grocery anchored retail centers. We've developed some mixed use properties in Marda Loop area. We've expanded our geography. We had a property in Whistler we developed. We have 3 assets in Saskatoon. We've been in the US and done a little bit there. And right now, I would say Ronmor is essentially, we've worked really hard the last 5 years to build a really strong team. And I'd like to describe our team as very nimble, and we have a very, very good team environment. So where Ronmor is at today is, since we're nimble, we can kind of get into all the asset classes. And so what we like to do is sort of be opportunistic and invest in the asset classes that make sense for today and ones that we can keep for the long term.
Amazing. Very cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I love hearing the multiple generation families because you don't see that very often.
Sure.
You hear often that the second generation kind of, maybe doesn't have that same work ethic or whatever it may be, but it sounds like you guys have been able to maintain it. So that's beautiful to hear. Congratulations. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Doing a little bit of a deep dive. You've had a diverse career from investment banking to co-founding a storage and moving business to real estate development as you're currently in now. Tell me about your personal career path. What are some of the major milestones along the way? And how did you reach your current levels of success?
Sure. So I grew up in Calgary. I went to high school at Rundle, and I was a big baseball player. So I wanted to go down to the U.S. and just kind of get the college experience there. And so I was able to land at a school called Claremont McKenna College. And so I played baseball there until I hurt my arm. But the real reason I went there was just the quality of the academics and the student body. So I was able to really see another side of academics, and the quality of the students there was really amazing. So when I was there, almost 100% of the students lived on campus, and you would get different dorm each year. And it was always like such a hectic time when you were moving or when you were leaving for the summer. And so storage was like a huge issue at the school. And what would happen is students would rent like a self-storage unit for 3 months. And it was really expensive. And also they had no way of getting their goods to the self-storage facility because a lot of students didn't have cars. So the ones that did have cars were just getting bombarded by all their friends. And so what we realized was, well, maybe we can solve this problem and we can have people store by the individual item. And so it would actually cost them less. And then we could do all the pickup and delivery. And we would just get one giant storage unit, which was like way cheaper per square foot. And we would just organize the unit appropriately. And so, yeah, we created this website and you could go on and just be like, I have a TV and a couch and a lamp, and it's going to cost, $250 for the summer. They would schedule their pickup time, and we would come with the biggest U-Haul we could rent. And we would move all their stuff into the U-Haul, take it to storage. And yeah, that business, like really, it taught me a lot about what starting a business really takes. And I was super passionate about that. I think it really like got the entrepreneurial side out of me, and that's how I'm built. So I after college, I got a job at a startup investment bank in Calgary. And I sort of wanted exposure to something other than my family business. So it was an oil and gas kind of boutique investment bank. So I went there, and I quickly learned it wasn't the career path for me. I really liked the hands-on aspect of my startup. And there were some incredibly smart people there and like really hard workers. But, it just wasn't for me. So I quickly left. I didn't want to waste time. And I talked to my dad, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but maybe I come into the business. I might as well learn something while I figure out what I want to do. I don't want to just sit around. So he's like, absolutely, come on in. And as soon as I came into the business, I was like, this is it. This is for me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what year was that? Do you remember?
It would have been November 2011.
2011. Okay, so that's quite a while ago.
It's quite a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Very cool. I love that you followed in your grandfather's footsteps, the entrepreneurial, passion. And did you know when you were a kid that you had that entrepreneurial spirit, or was that kind of something you discovered kind of by finding a problem and trying to solve it? Or
yeah, I think I always knew, like, whenever I would hear about what was going on in our family business, it definitely interested me. But really, sports was my focus my whole childhood. I just, loved playing all types of sports, and wanted to make a go of that. But after I hurt my arm in baseball and I was away at school, I needed to get my grades up anyway, so maybe it wasn't a bad thing. But I started to really focus on school, and I was taking these entrepreneurship classes, and it was definitely what I was naturally good at. So that's when I think it really came out, was in college.
Yeah, very, very cool. Awesome. And so what would be some of the key character qualities that have kind of taken you along this path? Like entrepreneurship is obviously one of them. What are some of the other things that Harrison, embodies that has gotten you to the point that you're at today?
I think it's definitely my ability to connect with people. I really enjoy getting to know people. I'm genuinely interested in every single person's story. And I think every single individual has like unique qualities. And when I look at our team at Ronmor, it's like every person brings something unique to the table. And, what I love to do is sort of get to know what people are best at and how can we sort of work together to make something happen.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That's so critical. And that is a skill set, is to be able to identify someone's skills and allow them to flourish within that skill set. That's huge.
Absolutely.
Maximizing their potential.
Absolutely. And I think another one is I really enjoy kind of getting into the nitty gritties of a startup. And I think that, leading by example, and especially someone in my position, it's like I am third generation ownership. You're automatically looked at in a different light. And so what I've always wanted to prove is that I can do, sort of the hardest tasks or the least desirable tasks. And whether it's, getting very deep into building a financial model or it's manual labor, whatever it is, you don't want to shy away from that.
I love that. That's amazing that you have that mentality. A friend of mine has a pretty successful business, and just recently he's brought his daughter into it. But their entire management are pushing back because she's going in there and hopping on Facebook and, just kind of, and his justification is it's my business. She can do whatever she wants, but horrible for culture, for culture. And, my advice to him, not that, he's got a bigger business than me, but my advice was, you got to tell her like she's got to work extra hard, like twice as hard as anyone else to earn that trust and respect. So
absolutely.
It sounds like you got that.
I'm a big believer in that. And so that's, I think, a way that I can sort of build respect for my peers and show them that I don't view myself in any sort of different light. Like I'm part of the team, because that's the reality, right? Like I'm just part of this team. So
amazing. Great approach. Ronmor's ownership, as you mentioned, it's by 2 third-generation Alberta families. It speaks to its legacy. How does this long-term vision influence the company's strategy and culture?
I think it's arguably the most important thing. I think the long-term vision is what sets us apart. I look at the pieces of land that my grandfather would have been a part of purchasing. He wasn't even alive to see developed. Not a lot of other companies have that ability. Some of the larger companies, they want to churn capital. They want to invest now. They'll pay market price. They'll do their development and they'll get out, and they make good returns for their investors. And then we were large enough that we could buy these and sit on them and be patient. So I think it's really shaped our long-term vision, and it's created a ton of opportunity for us.
Very, very cool. Great answer. Ronmor also emphasizes innovative projects and sustainable design and superior construction quality. Can you share an example of a project where these principles have truly come to life?
Yeah, I think that if I look at some of our Marta Loop, like I'll pick out Garrison Corner specifically. I think we did a really good job on executing that project. Because we have such a long-term vision, we want to make sure that we build something that's going to last. We're not merchant developers. We're not trying to flip it. So the more money that we can allocate towards the quality, the more we're going to save throughout the life of the property. So I would pick that project. I think it looks nice. We've got, underground parking. We've got amazing tenants in there. And so that would be my choice.
Very cool. Is that the one kitty corner to the Safeway?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, with the Village Ice Cream. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, awesome. We used to live fairly close to there, and many visits And that good pizza place in there. I don't know if that was years ago. I don't know if it's still there.
We actually have a new taco place that just
Oh,
opened.
okay. Okay. Right on. That's awesome. Very good. Thank you. What criteria does Ronmor use when evaluating new acquisitions or development opportunities? Are there any specific markets or sectors that you're particularly bullish on right now?
Well, it's really nice to say that I'm bullish on Calgary. I love Calgary, everything about it. We've got amazing people here. It's an entrepreneurial city. So I would say that we feel very good about the future of Alberta and specifically Calgary. In terms of criteria, it's different between all the projects. So obviously we want to generate a good return. But if we're keeping things long term, then location is really critical. Because it'll stand the test of time. When the market goes down, if you have an asset that is in a really good location, those troughs, you're gonna do better. And so I think location is critical. And in terms of sectors, I mean, where our bread and butter has historically been retail, it's been harder for those projects to pencil in terms of new construction. But we would always look at a retail development. And we have a great team here that knows how to execute those. We've gotten into the self-storage business a little bit. There's just been sort of really good metrics on in the self-storage world. Like rents are pretty resilient. They're high per square foot. Your construction costs are pretty low for that. And then, your lease up ability is actually pretty strong. And I think Calgary's been underserviced in self-storage for forever, really. And so we've been involved in that. And then with the CMHC financing opportunity, we've been looking at some multifamily rental projects as well. Yeah.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, that seems to be a lot of people from the commercial space seem to be putting their eye on that, which is good.
Yeah, it's just right now with the CMHC financing, you're able to get high leverage and just generate better returns. So I think that's why everyone's looking at it. Yeah,
It makes sense. You've kind of already touched on this, but can you discuss how you approach capital deployment in the current economic environment? It sounds like you're pretty bullish on Calgary, and also what role do partnerships or joint ventures play in your strategy?
Yeah. So in terms of capital deployment, like we're a pretty conservative group. We have an amazing executive team, and whenever we have new opportunities, we kind of get in the war room and we just have these lengthy, healthy debates about everything. And so, some tend to be more conservative, some are a little more bullish. I'm probably one of the more excited, bullish ones, but my team can sort of keep me in line, which is great. And so we want to make sure that when we're looking at capital deployment, that we have something with a margin of safety. We don't want to stretch ourselves too thin and get into a project that is not going to generate good returns. So we're very conservative in our underwriting, and we just want to be very selective with the type of assets that we're pursuing. And in terms of partnerships and joint ventures, I think they're a really critical part of the real estate business in general, especially when you get the larger projects. Typically on our retail stuff, we've kind of done things on our own. But on some of these big pieces of farmlands, we joint ventured many times. We have 2 ongoing right now, Yorkville with Mattamy Homes and Glacier Ridge with Anthem. And both are going really well. They both bring a really good expertise to the table, great people to work with. We can all trust each other and hopefully do much more business together in the future.
Very cool. Very good. Thank you. The commercial real estate market is consistently evolving. What trends do you see shaping the future of retail, office, and industrial properties in Alberta?
Thankfully, we're not super involved in office because that's just been a very difficult asset, unfortunately, in Calgary. But, the goal is that hopefully the Alberta economy, the Calgary economy can just keep improving. People want to keep going to work, and that will hopefully just get better. In terms of retail, it's like I said, it's been difficult to develop new retail centers. So I think that the amount of construction, the amount of new development it has slowed tremendously. And what's happening now is the existing shopping centers seem to be performing better because we've had like a surge in population growth, not as much retail being built on the market. Yeah, so the assets we do have are very strong right now. And I think as interest rates drop and hopefully construction costs can stabilize, that new retail can be built.
Okay. Yeah. And industrial, is that a world that you live in at all, or?
A little bit. We've got some farmland that will be developed into industrial. The big trend right now is obviously data centers. So it's really hard to keep up with how fast that's moving. But our team's just trying to learn as much as possible about the data center world. But I think that's going to hopefully be a big thing for Alberta and for industrial development.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we were at the Calgary Real Estate Forum, and that was the buzzword around there.
For sure.
Yeah, that's cool. What leadership lessons have you learned while working in a family-owned business like Ronmor, and that you would like to pass on to others?
That's a good one. I think, seeing how my dad has operated and the stories I still hear about my grandfather, I think the key thing is to always treat people properly and with respect.
Yes.
And I think that's been a thing that's been very important in Ronmor. When we hire any of our staff, our leadership is we treat our people very well.
Amazing.
And in turn they treat us very well, and it's just a very good relationship. Yeah. So I would say that would be one of the most important leadership qualities is how to treat people with respect.
Awesome. How do you get results while still being really nice? How do you kind of find that happy balance? Any thoughts on that?
I think it's being consistent and fair, because in business things go wrong. It's inevitable, and humans make errors, and so it's not getting mad if people are doing their best, and sometimes things just go wrong. It's how do we resolve this problem together? If people aren't acting properly, it's just how do you respectfully move on, right? And not make a big deal out of it. But I think the important thing from leadership is to show consistency and just to be solid overall.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I love that. You've been the chair of the annual sports dinner at the Paperny family JCC for several years. How does your community involvement intersect with your professional role?
That dinner is one of my favorite things I get to do every year. It's been just a pleasure to work on it. The team at the JCC is amazing. It's an opportunity for me to sort of raise money for a very good cause that played a role in my life, and to bring the business community that I work with on a daily basis together. And so they can get exposure to what the JCC does for so many people. And it's a very fun event. And as a big sports fan, to bring in a keynote speaker and to hear their story is always very exciting for me.
Yeah. I saw Bill Walton was at one of them recently. Oh, I would have loved to be at that one.
Yeah, Bill was entertaining, that's for sure.
I bet. He's a storyteller. I remember watching him on NBC News, commentating the basketball games, and he's a poet. He's an interesting guy.
For sure.
Yeah. Very cool. And tell me a little bit about what is that event? What are you raising money for, and what's the whole initiative about?
Yeah, so we have this annual dinner. We bring in a keynote sports speaker, and all the proceeds go to the Calgary JCC, and they go towards the facility, all the programs they have for children, for seniors, etc.
Amazing. Very good. Awesome. For those looking to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you offer to others? You already gave the advice about, treating people with respect. What more would you say to that?
I think that you have to almost become obsessed with learning. I think that if you are eager and willing to learn about anything and everything, that's going to just propel your career. I got advice when I was in college from a successful entrepreneur, and he said, when I first started my career, I went into a meeting and I knew nothing, and I left there and I just felt stupid. I was the young guy, I didn't know what I was doing. And he said, after that, before every meeting, I made sure I read so much about the topic that we were going to discuss that I at least was able to know what was being discussed in the room. So I took that advice to heart for sure. And, I spent a lot of time with the very good people at Ronmor and in our other businesses. And I just learned and learned and learned as much as I can from them. So that's a big piece of advice, is be obsessed with learning.
I love it. Are you, it sounds like you're a bit of an academic. You said, you really focus on your academics in college, I think, or university. But do you also read a lot of books still, or do you listen to podcasts, or where else do you learn about the industry outside of, within your mentors at Ronmor?
So I think one of the most important parts to my learning has been reading value investing books. So that was a big part of sort of learning how to make my way in my career. I had a mentor when I was in my late teens, and he was a very big academic and loved value investing. So he sort of introduced me to that world. And reading all those books just taught me so many important business principles. And so I would recommend to anyone, no matter what your job is, if you're getting into the business world, read the value investing books like The Intelligent Investor, Benjamin Graham, the Philip Fisher books, all the Buffett books. Like, they're tremendous. So I have 2 little kids now, so I'm not able to read as much with the amount of work going on and all their activities. So I do need to get back into the books. Yeah.
You know what's funny? I'm the same, but so this bookshelf, I've said a few times on my podcast, is not going to get any bigger now, because now I'm strictly audiobooks now.
Oh, cool.
And so now I find, like, often when I'm driving, I don't know how old your kids are, but now they're in the activity stage where they're in sports and all that stuff. So as I drive them everywhere, I listen to the audiobooks, and I'm hoping they absorb some of it along the way too. But that's where I get my opportunity to read my books.
That's great.
Yeah. Very cool. So I'm going to skip, because that was one of my questions is, if you could recommend any book to anybody, what book would that be in this industry, but it doesn't have to be a book for this industry specific.
Yeah, I think it would be some of the value investing books. So Intelligent Investor, Buffettology, Common Stocks and Uncommon Returns. I think that's the Philip Fisher one. Really good. There's one by Seth Klarman. So I would just say that once you get into the value investing books, they just keep compounding, and they reference other books, and you just go down a rabbit hole. So honestly, I think I've learned some of my best principles from those books.
Amazing. Very cool. Finally, my last question is more of a fun one, hopefully. If you could acquire any famous property in the world, which one would it be and why?
I'd have to say probably like Madison Square Garden. You would be able to see all the concerts, all the sporting events. It's in the heart of Manhattan. I hope it never gets redeveloped one day, but if it did, you would have just a tremendous piece of real estate. So yeah, there's not one bad attribute about that site.
I love that choice. Are you a Knicks fan?
I'm not a Knicks fan, but I love New York City, and
very cool.
I would say when it comes to sports, I'm just a diehard Flames fan.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Right on. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. Well, Harrison, thank you so much. Can people connect with you on LinkedIn? Is that the best place to kind of connect? Or?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Email, LinkedIn, whatever.
Right on. Well, thank you, Harrison. I really, really appreciate coming on, and wishing you much continued success, and may it be many more generations to come. And
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's exciting what you guys are doing. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Jared. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome.